Welcome to episode 457 of the 15-year-old Tilehurst End podcast and fan site, I might add. Not only have we got a 3-0 victory to talk about against the Latics, we also have TTE royalty. I'm literally choking as I say this. I can't believe it. It's like the best guest we've had since the last time you were on Wimb. 700 episodes of this podcast, 15 years. What else is there to say?
Well, hello and thank you. As always, your fives are in the post. By the way, I'm no longer the boss, so you don't have to suck up to me anymore. But I appreciate the kind words all the same.
That's a good point, Ben. You just did some wonderful sucking up there. Have you got some trash talk that can kind of go back on top of it just to even things out?
Well, I suppose the first place is no one's checked on my well-being since last Tuesday. So,
how is your well-being? How are you doing, I guess?
Well,
Is that what we're asking?
Out of the World Cup, aren't we? Not even in it.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I was a little bit wondering if this was a mental health awareness start to the pod, which would be fine, listeners, obviously.
How would you know? You haven't asked.
I haven't asked. I got to be honest, the first time I saw anything about that was I saw pictures of a very glum-looking Harry Wilson, and I was like, oh, yeah, that happened, didn't it? It sucks that you guys and the Irish went out in the same night.
We all did. Yeah, we all did.
It was everybody went out. The two, what was it?
Yeah.
Wales were leading, Republic of Ireland were leading, and then suddenly you turn around, it's two defeats on penalties. I mean, I thought Northern Ireland were going to go out to Italy, although Italy then
bottled it. I know this is it. We missed a fantastic opportunity, but listen, we're going to get playoffs, aren't we? So that's going to be the compensation for it.
Wow, exactly.
We're going to talk about a win, which was thoroughly bloody enjoyable, actually. Very, very enjoyable. It was almost like the team knew that we were 15 years old at the start of this week. So, they kind of gave us an early birthday present. But, we're going to talk about the game. We're going to talk about being 15, 700 episodes of this pod. This is 457 of the, in inverted commas, usual canon. I am here with Mr. Wimb. That's it. That's all we call him. And Ross Webber, as always, to talk about all things Reading FC.
No, I'm here to talk about being 15. I'm excited to talk about cycling to the corner shop and playing basketball with my mates at the rundown basketball thing, and then retiring to football on the park and realizing that I'm much better at that.
Exactly. Huge thanks to the Amazons. I've literally just seen they've released an extended version of Mother on Instagram. So go and check that out because it's an absolute banger. But thank you to them for
over at the Purple Turtle stage, right? Sorry, the interrupting you has begun early today. You go ahead with this. They're at the Purple Turtle stage on Saturday, I believe.
They are Easter Monday, if you like Easter. They are there. Yeah.
So they're there on Saturday. They're not going to have a very big crowd.
Yeah,
it's a really exclusive show.
Yeah, it's an exclusive show to Seagulls.
They're just popping over.
Yeah.
They're at the Costco. They're in the car park. They're having a great time.
But thank you to them as always. Thank you to Siren, our brand new beer partner. Got some exciting news coming up later on in the next few weeks, which is going to be good. And of course to Uncle Waldy and his team, who have, I think, Wim, have been the only sponsor that this pod's ever had, and have done it for many years, right?
Yeah, absolutely. They're the only ones that have consistently put their hands in their pocket, put it that way. I think we've had a few partnerships over the years here and there for little bits and pieces, but no, the generosity from Uncle Waldy and ZCZ has been, brilliant. And it's, we'll come on to talk about it when we talk about 15 years, but it's the Tilehurst End is a community effort and it's everybody pitching in. But look, I'm going to be front. Look, we love the people that put their hand in their pocket even more because it keeps the lights on and lets, people buy equipment. I remember, I think one of their very early donations helped me buy a new mixer when I used to do this show in my study with Westy and Johnny and people like that. So you think, they're just spending it and going down the pub. They're not. We're literally putting it into equipment and stuff like that. So yeah, and all the patrons as well, because people still I know Chipping over there as well, so thank you.
This very microphone that I'm holding and talking to you in right now, listeners, is a thanks to Waldy kind of thing. Same with Ben there. That's why you can hear the microphone making noises suddenly. But, can't teach us how to use it properly, unfortunately. So I did remember, though, Waldy and Bendy is the name of his podcast. So if you're looking for an art podcast, and who isn't? That's the one to go for. Waldy and Bendy. You can find it on the ZCZ Films YouTube channel after you've watched this one. Don't leave yet if you're on YouTube. Stay here, like, subscribe, comment, anything you like down there. Even if you want to tell me I'm an idiot, do that anyway. That helps with engagement. So just go ahead.
I don't need YouTube for that, thanks. You need it. But yeah, there we go. I've done it. We're good. We can talk about Wigan now, which was a thoroughly enjoyable experience. So we're going to do that after this short break. Just for reference, Wimb didn't do that segue live. They're all pre-recorded, and as I often say, he's got a voice like gravy, so smooth and silky.
Why are you phoning me up every Monday night and getting me to do the links live then? I don't understand.
Because we don't tend to actually get around to recording on Monday night.
Yeah, we don't. We're a shambles with that. Our whole schedule is just ridiculous. And the reason we're a day late is because we thought actually we'll get Wim on due to a prior arrangement, which he may or may not have been paid for. He couldn't make yesterday, which was Tuesday. So we're recorded on Wednesday night. So here we are. Right, Wigan 3-0, dominant performance, thoroughly enjoyable. I have to say, it's very, very nice to get a 3-0 win, just a win actually, just very, very comfortable. And Ross, cracking performance from Charlie Savage.
With the Charlie Savage Cup now as well, listeners, if you're not watching the YouTube channel, he's got himself. Is that the other side of the Jack Marriott Cup, or is that a separate cup?
He's got his own one.
No, two different. He doesn't need to share a cup with anyone else. Yeah. How are you feeling about Charlie Savage in his new position, I guess?
Loved it.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Yeah. I think it's a good fit for him, right? There were times a lot last season when, so just to clarify real quick, I'll talk about the general shape again in a second, but Charlie Savage spent a good amount of time in this game, especially if you go looking at the heat maps in the sort of left 10 position. So he's sitting in the left half space most of the time. And last season, we spoke a lot about how Charlie Savage was helping to give balance to the midfield because he was basically the only left-footed player that Reading had available in midfield. And so, as we have seen with many other teams, if you don't have a natural left footer, at least at one point of your, of your left-sided attack, whether that be your fullback, whether that be your winger, whether that be your, 8 or whatever, you're going to sometimes have trouble, moving the ball down the field because the mechanics of a right-footed player means that they're going to have to move their body a little bit more. And when we're talking about pro-level football, obviously like League One is, not as high-level football as like some other leagues, but this is still very much a league whereby like if you pass to the wrong foot, you could have blown the entire attacking chance or something like that. Like the margins are that small. And so having a left-footed player on the left side, I think is only a good thing. Do you want me to go more into the shape or do you want to stay with Charlie? Because I don't want to take you too far off your favourite subject.
Look, I thought it was a good performance from a lot of players, to be honest with you. In reality, and Wim will jump in a sec on court, I'm sure, but Wigan were terrible. Wigan were really, really bad. And it was quite nice for us to be able to say that about a team when we've had weeks of opposition fans saying that we're the worst team they've seen. The only difference being that our league positions are, sort of chalk and cheese with the Latics at the moment. But yeah, I thought Wigan were dreadful. I think we coped very, very well with what we had to do in the game, given the performance from the previous week, which was absolutely appalling, for want of a better phrase. So it was nice, and I think Charlie was very, very proactive in the game. At first I thought he'd scored. I hadn't seen the own goal part of the second goal. Talk about Long Kelvin in a minute as well. But yeah, I mean, give us some stuff on the shape, because you noticed a few things in the game, didn't you?
Yeah, definitely. So with the shape in this particular game, I think all season something that you have seen is especially when Reading are in possession, they move into this sort of back three, and that could involve like this full sort of wing back formation that we've seen a few times against like Bradford away, for example, whereby they had it was a while ago now, but like an early Randall Williams at left wing back kind of thing. And I think that at the end of the day, what Liam is trying to do is try and end up with 5 players in the forward line once we get all the way down the field. If we go all the way down the field, that's a pretty common tactic in the post Pep Guardiola world. Like, pretty much nearly every formation is set up to eventually push 5 people forward into that final line to try to stretch out a low block and try and break it apart. But Reading are a little bit different in that if you go and look at the stats for this, I talked about this a few weeks ago, but once again, they played the vast majority of their passes in their own half, and then they want to go over the top quickly and they want to kind of play into, the opponent's half with a sort of artificial transition. In this particular game, I think Reading basically spent at least the entire first half in a 3-4-2-1. You kind of had, obviously, Kelvin leading the line. Then you had Charlie Savage on the left side of him. You had Kamari Doyle on the right side of him. Another incredible game from Kamari Doyle. I think he's top class in this league, and unfortunately probably pushing a little bit above our ability to sign him in the summer. I could be wrong about that. Maybe that's something to debate. But and then obviously you kind of had Liam Fraser and Wing in the middle with Chirwa very, very, very deep for what we've seen him do so far. And then Niambe on the other side, almost getting higher than Chirwa at times. You go look at Chirwa's heat map. Obviously, he only played one half in this game. It was good to see him come back. But he spent the majority of his time in his own half, right? And this is in a half of football in which Wigan didn't produce a single shot. So it really tells you just like where his starting position was, basically, it being that far back. What I liked about the 3-4-2-1 a lot was that I think it allowed for people to get close to Kelvin. And typically with that, I would say that, like, and when I say people, I mean like our players, so Charlie and Kamari Doyle, obviously. And typically with that for me would be something whereby it helps in possession because like you've got them right there, to play to. You can play off them very easily if we're coming over the top to them. But what I think it actually kind of looked like in many cases was that Kamari or Charlie Savage would kind of do the press for Kelvin, and then once they had won the ball back or once they had forced them forced Wigan into an odd situation, then they'd play the ball into Kelvin. And I quite liked that from a shape perspective. I think, to be honest with you, Liam's tried a few different things to kind of try to rebuild the attack since Jack Marriott got injured, and this is undoubtedly my favourite so far. What this attack would have looked like if Reading had gone behind a goal early rather than ahead a goal early, I think would have been quite interesting to see. But yeah, lots of kind of shape changes. And again, like they've used like back three shapes in different phases of play in or out of possession many times this year. But this was the first time for me where you saw, Reading in a game in which they wanted to go forward and attack with verve, set up in a 3-4-2-1 and execute it very well, I thought.
Thank you for using the word verve. People don't use that enough. Really, really nice.
Was it Richard Ashcroft was the lead singer of the Verve?
Yeah. One of the greatest albums ever made, actually, but by the by.
Bittersweet Symphony is the England national team song to me. So unfortunately, you can't use it.
I can't use it. No. Great album. Urban Hymns, fantastic album. Wim, we've without blowing our own trumpets here, we've always tried to champion Long Kelvin, even when probably Long Kelvin wasn't championing Long Kelvin himself in terms of the lack of confidence. He popped up, right place, right time with another 2 goals on Saturday. Do you feel, given the balance of the last few games that he's had, obviously, hat-trick a couple of weeks ago, another 2 goals here, do you feel like the fan base are coming back to him in terms of having, restored faith in what he can do for the last period of games of this season? Or is there still a long way to go for people to point to him and go, he's the man for us?
I don't know about long way to go. I certainly think he's getting there. I think, he scores, 6 goals in a month. I think there was a stat saying I think he scored the most goals of any player, I think, in the top 4 divisions in the calendar month. And it's, his goals have won us 9 points, effectively. So, look, in the same way that I counted myself as one of his biggest critics last year, Jayden Wareham, going into that period where he had to step up when Sam Smith left, you had to take your hat off in the end and say, look, he's done well and he's helped win us some points. And Kelvin's doing exactly the same now. Do I want more from him? Am I still fully convinced by him? Am I sitting here going, I can't wait to see Kelvin leading the line next season? No, because I still think there's lots to his game to improve. But I think it's once again tips that scale. I can remember the discussion on this podcast and on the website in the last few weeks about what happens in the summer. Do we say goodbye? Do we look to loan him out? And suddenly that contract extension is looking a good bit of business. I think at the very worst, even if you were a big critic of Kelvin, what you could say is, well, at least this has put him in the shop window a little bit for other clubs. And look, again, first goal, really well taken. The second goal, one of the critics, I think you pointed out, Ross, Stephen Hunt talking on the commentary a couple of weeks ago, one of Kelvin's weaknesses is he's not got that instinctual striker behaviour that maybe someone like a Jack Marriott has.
Yeah.
But he found himself in the right position for both goals at the weekend. Mm-hmm. And that's what you want to see from him. And okay, some people don't have that natural instinct and it has to be coached. And you wonder about the impact of someone like a James Beattie on the coaching staff that has had on Kelvin. And I think what helps as well on Saturday as well and is Daniel Chilwell and the impact that he has and just the way he frightens teams. And he had, I think it's 5 dribbles. I think I'm looking at the stats on the weekend, 5 dribbles out of the 11 we had on the entire team. And I just think he distracts the opposition defence.
I don't think opposition players, sorry, Wim, like always realise how far they're backing up against Chirwa. Like there'll be times when it doesn't seem like he's done a whole lot, but he's actually moved the ball 30 yards down the field because he's just going. And in that sort of anticipation for him to like suddenly cut, like the defender's just backed up and given him so much space. So yeah, sorry, you're spot on.
No, exactly. And whilst he does it more with his trickery than necessarily pace, I think you saw it a little bit with Randall Williams and maybe why the wheels fell off at Stevenage last week was because suddenly we just didn't have that threat. I mean, Paddy Lane's just not threatening at the moment. Like I love him. I really want him to turn the corner, but he's just not doing that. And having Chilwell back in that side, maybe creating that little bit of extra space for Doyle and for Long Kelvin is a real big asset. And I'm really hoping he can stay fit. I was, as soon as we go 3-0 up, I was just like, why is he still on the pitch? Get him off. And Tim Roberts as well come back into the team as well, getting sort of 15 minutes off the bench as well. So just at the right time of the season, I know we've had a bit of a blow this week, losing, Ward for the season. We lost Randell for the season as well. But having Roberts and Chilwell back in that side as well, being real assets down the left, and you're talking about Charlie Savage, and I did think he was linking up really well with Chilwell as well before his injury as well. So you're kind of unlocking other players just by bringing one player back in.
I 100% agree with that, by the way. Like, I think partly that's what the left foot helps in terms of being able to shift it across your body quicker. But I completely agree with you in that, like, you think about what Charlie does well. It is that sort of like small link up, like 5-yard, 10-yard passes that just kind of like make a play work by just like, and this is done in 1 touch rather than like 2 touches or something like that. And I think also, like, if you're thinking about like roles rather than like positions necessarily, another thing Charlie does well is he has his dad's engine, right? And he can run for days. And he does that, like what he's split up front. And again, like, I don't think in a press you have to get the ball every single time, like especially one of the people like leading the press. I think you just have to, force the opposition into a different decision from the one that they wanted to make. So if that means that you just get out into a lane and you stop them from going out into the lane they wanted to go into, well, now they have to rebuild. They probably will start restarting their entire build up or something like that. I just think it's useful to have a player like that. Building up on what you said on Kelvin, I think you made a great point about like James Beattie and how that may have affected him. I, for my sins, have watched many Southampton games in my lifetime because I'm from there, and I remember watching James Beattie, and I was actually very excited when he came back because I remember him as that almost pre-proper Barclays Premier League like kind of striker. But you are spot on that like some of the actual like finishers have shown some like striker instinct that I previously haven't typically thought of with Calvin. I've almost thought of Calvin as like a very big 10 at times, and that he likes to receive the ball to feet and dribble through people. But now it's like 3 games with a headed goal in March as well, which is like even more exciting to me than just like whatever else he's doing out there. Because like if we can like put the ball up in the air and have him, I mean, he ran over a dude on the way to his first goal. Like if he can do that, and I think it's something we've been screaming for him to do for ages, is use that huge frame that you are blessed with, Kelvin, then yeah, really exciting. Sky's the limit.
And I think as well, Liam's talked about this and the development of that Kelvin's had, and maybe not having that kind of experience, that regular run. In a different time, he would have been out in League Two, maybe even the National League, playing week in, week out, learning how to use his body, learning against different styles of defending. And it sometimes takes players a while to click. I mean, okay, it's going back a while, but you look at the likes of Jamie Vardy, Ian Wright in past times as well. Sometimes it just takes a striker a little bit longer. Even players like Thierry Henry, I know not very long Kelvin to Thierry Henry quite yet, but getting that experience and learning, getting to those right positions, and suddenly things can just click. So he's still at that age where he is developing. He's only had however many games it is as a main striker. So look, I'm cautiously excited, I think would be the best way of putting it. But look, if you had Jack Marriott fit tomorrow, would I still be putting Jack Marriott straight back in the team? Yes, I would.
Yeah.
I think it's difficult, isn't it? I really want him to succeed at the football club. I really do. I like him a lot as a player. I'm really, really pleased that he's scored goals, not least because he's picking us, points, but also just for him, just for his own kind of morale and self-esteem. Like he does come across in a difficult way at times on the pitch. You mentioned Wimb about not being totally convinced or whatever, but it's one of those where his whole body language just oozes that I'll do it if I want to do it sort of thing. And I'm not against those players, but they have to back it up with the goals. And I think there was a period of time, the first game of the season a couple of years ago when he scored against Birmingham, I was thinking, here we go. Like this guy is the one now. Like we're gonna kick on and he's gonna be incredible and we might make some money out of him and so on. And it just hasn't happened for him at this point in time. He's obviously getting a little bit older as well, but I like him. I really, really do. And Saturday was one of those games where everything sort of seemed to click. Obviously Kamari Doyle went off injured. We don't know the extent of that yet, but it was an overall really positive performance in the sunshine.
Speaking of things you like, Ben, did you see Des Williams doing the Kelvin celebration?
Yeah.
Very enjoyable.
Yeah.
Very
and
enjoyable.
I think he's just cool. I think he's a cool player. I know that he's incredibly frustrating at times to watch, but with the running of games now, we want players in form, we want players in confidence to be able to potentially see us over the line. And I guess that this next question draws the recap to a close on this part of the pod anyway. We're sat here on April the 1st. No fools here, by the way. So don't worry about that. Do you, in your gut, for both of you at the moment, do you feel that we will be one of the 4 teams in the playoffs come the end of the season? Ross?
Oh, I have to go first, do I? I think I said a few weeks ago that I think we'll finish 7th for the 2nd season in a row, and I think I'm going to stay with that, even though it's not very positive. But yeah, that's kind of what I think. We'll see.
I'm on that side of the fence as well, unfortunately. I think we're just going to miss out. I think, we had a little thought experiment in our little Tilehurst End group chat looking through the different run-ins of the teams, and ours is really difficult. I think the only door of opportunity I can see for Reading is actually how bad form Bradford are in and the kind of run-in that Bradford have. So if Reading can maybe hang around and keep taking points, I think it's all just going to come down to these next 2 games, isn't it? I think if Reading go to Huddersfield and face Lincoln at home and we've picked up 3-4 points from those games, it's game on. But if we're coming away with 1 point out of 6 and Stevenage aren't slipping up, because I think Stevenage have got a fairly easy game coming up next. I want to say it's like Northampton at home possibly, Rotherham away and then Blackpool at home. So that again, in the same Easter weekend, that's a very easy scenario to see Stevenage taking 4 to 6 points, and if Reading end up with 1, plus the games in hand, that psychological thing is going to be really hard for Reading to come back from. So I think we're just going to miss out, but it's not the kind of missing out where I'm like, I'm absolutely gutted we've blown a massive opportunity this season.
Yeah.
Do you know, it's funny because I think if we had last season's point total, I think we talked about this, right? We would probably make the playoffs this season. And we're not going to be a million. I think we're only going to be like 4 or 5 points off. But that might literally be the 4 or 5 points, that matters this year. But like, so just to say, if we ended up with a number of points we had last season, then we probably made the playoffs. So last year it would have been enough, and it wasn't, obviously, because of Leyton Orient's last late run. I just think you're right. Like, I think Stevenage's run in is pretty simple. So that might be that.
I agree. I think we miss out. I said this for weeks now. Coupled with the fact that we're inconsistent, the mounting injuries are a massive concern because there's no strength in depth anyway. Take those injuries out, there's no game changers on the bench when we need to, for me, affect games. But, you look at those 2 games in hand, as you said, psychologically, Stockport, I think, will be fine. Yeah, Bradford are kind of not in free fall just yet, but they're in really, really poor form. And really, you've got to look below Plymouth. Plymouth are in a fantastic run of form, steaming in there. Wickham are still sniffing around. Huddersfield, obviously we'll go there on Friday. We wish Liam Manning all the very best while he kind of deals with the issues that he's got and his family have got, because that's just a horrible, horrible situation to be in. But they're in dreadful form as well. So, it's very, very difficult to see us actually getting in the playoffs, and we are, at risk of sounding ultra negative, relying on other teams to slip up and us making sure that we do our job, which there's too many factors involved there, I think, really. We'll see. We'll see.
Well, the best thing about it is I do think it is in Reading's hands, because I think if Reading win their last 6 games, I think they'll make it. I think if we get 18 points, we will somehow make it. The difficulty is seeing Reading win 6 games in a row to make it 7 wins in a row effectively to end the season. And I think that's what it's going to take. I think the penny really dropped when the two of you were going through the run-in last week of, I think, you were talking about it, you included, I think both of you, a win over Wigan. It was like Reading will get 14 points. I think, Ross, you said, Stevenage just have to win 4 games.
Yeah.
And that's it. And they're fine and they're in. And that really kind of makes you go, that is how hard it is. The end of the season's just snuck up on us. I cannot believe we're
really
talking about 6 games to go.
No, neither.
It's crazy.
It feels wild.
I feel like we've done a season, but I also don't feel like we've done a season. It's kind of just, the whole thing is just, we've kind of meandered through it a little bit, really. And it's, I guess, because we haven't had the stress of the on off-field stuff. It's felt a little bit, I want to say, pedestrian at times. Like, does that make sense? In terms of how we've gone about the season, and there's been no massive dramas that we've had to deal with as a fan base. I don't know, it just feels a bit odd.
Well, when's the last time Reading had a normal season like this? I think you have to go back pre-COVID, and even further back than that, because it felt like we were always either at the wrong end of the championship or somehow fighting for the playoffs. You have to go back a very long time where it's just been just meandering. Maybe we've got a little bit of a sniff of playoffs, a little bit of a worry about relegation, but a little bit of normalcy is not too bad after the decade we've just had.
Yeah.
Speaking of past seasons, we can't acknowledge this or have this pod without talking about the fact that Tilehurst End as an institution, and it is an institution, is 15 years old. Now I've been involved since 2019 when I started the award-winning Matchday column, which isn't so much Matchday regularity anymore. But Wim, you began this journey 15 years ago. Does it seem like 15 years?
It doesn't, and it does. I think I wrote a column up on the Tilehurst End that went up on the actual birthday yesterday, and it was only when I was sort of rattling off all of the different managers that we've had in that time that suddenly you go, wow, we've seen things in those 15 years. And I look at my my personal life. I started this, I was 24 when I started the Tilehurst End, and
it's crazy.
I'm about to turn 40.
And Ryan's not even 24 yet.
I was living at home. I was still living at home. I hadn't even met my now wife. So a lot, you kind of look at the milestones and everything that happens in that 15 years. And look, I'm not going to sit here and, especially the last 5 or 6 years, I've always just kind of been there. I've always been there to offer advice and championing the site and popping on the odd podcast or doing the very odd guest column. But I think I put it in the piece on the Tilehurst End. I know he hates getting the credit, but I mean, Sim has just been outstanding. I remember when I was looking to hand over the reins, and there were a couple of different people that sort of said, I'll take it on. I think it's probably the best decision I ever made was saying to Sim, do you want to take this on? Because, and I don't want this, don't want to be overly glazing anybody, and you two know full well, the effort that you have to put in to keep something like this going is immense. You talk about 15 years, 50 odd games a season. That's 750 match reports, 750 player ratings, 750 match previews. That's like you talk about 700 podcasts. And it's not just the, from the podcast point of view, it's not just the sitting in front of a microphone, press record and done. It's doing the editing. It's writing a little blurb for the website. It's doing the promotion, scheduling the tweets, doing all of that. And all of us have lives. None of us, certainly none of us, unless you two are suddenly getting a massive pay rise I don't know anything about. I did this literally and I started my career, I wanted to be in the media, I wanted to be in broadcasting, and the Tilehurst End was a great way for me to do that because, and I know I'm jumping around left, right and centre here, but there wasn't really anything out there for Reading fans at the time. We had Hobnob Anyone, which is still going, and great to see that still surviving as an institution, and Graham, who runs that, again, talk about me doing it 15 years. I think that started in 94.
Yeah, it's crazy.
30 years now.
Crazy.
Okay, it's user generated content, but still, we've got to keep the lights on. So there was nothing really there. Social media was just kind of taking off. A few people had blogs and Tumblrs and things like that, and I just thought, we need something. We need something where you can put an article, a proper article, and have this kind of repository and a place. And the whole name, the Tilehurst End, came from the fact that I didn't want it to be the Wild Wild West, the rabble, aka the South Bank, that was social media, and 606 message boards and stuff like that, where it's just hot takes flying in before hot take was even a thing, flying in left, right, and centre. But I also didn't want it to be an overly sterilized, club website style thing, or BBC Match Report, Sky Sports.
I love
Match
that you
Report.
didn't want it to be, sorry, Wim, like 606, and then the club went ahead and signed Charlie Savage.
Yeah, well, the 606 message boards were again
Right.
a great. Well, Jason Roberts was doing 606 while he was playing for Reading.
Oh, wow,
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
Yes,
he was.
He would play for Reading on a Saturday, and then he would do his 606 from. I think he went up to the BBC Radio Berkshire thing. So, look, and there's anything wrong with social media or the more sterilised, quote unquote, proper journalism. But I just wanted that middle ground, which was what the Tilehurst End was at the Old Elm Park. It was where you stood if you wanted a little bit of atmosphere, but you didn't want, you weren't in the posh seats in the Norfolk Road end, and you didn't want necessarily to be in the slightly more aggro environment of the South Bank. So that's what the Tilehurst End was. It was that middle ground. And to see it, I always wanted to do a podcast, but at the time, Weston Williams and Johnny Fordham were doing the Royals Post podcast. So I was like, I didn't want to step on their toes. I loved what they did. I loved that show. Obviously, I went on to podcast loads with Westy. And Paul Williams, the only reason he stopped, he moved out to Germany. Not that being abroad should stop you from doing a Reading
I was
podcast.
going to say,
Ross.
that's not even like, what's that?
Careful.
know.
Yeah, careful.
Like,
It's
geez.
nothing.
He won't be able to get on a plane to get back here at this rate, I tell you.
I know. And Johnny obviously kind of moved on to pastures new as well. So at that point, when they hung up their mics, I sort of said, look, do you mind if I carry on? And said to Westy, do you want to, I'll host if you come on with me. And that turned into however many couple of hundred episodes until Mark then took it on, and then you two followed in his footsteps as well. So look, again, I don't want to be overglazing anybody, but what the Tilehurst End represents is that community. It is that place, and I'm so proud and happy that not only have we had the people running it at the very top, from yourselves doing the podcast and Sim doing most of the website stuff, but it's all the volunteers. It's like it's the people you don't even recognise, like Sophie Ham, who does like the manager quotes.
Yeah.
She's been doing
Yeah.
this for like a decade,
That was
Yeah,
the
it's
first
crazy.
person I was going to mention too.
And all of these people that have chipped in over the years to do columns for a season, 2 seasons, 3 seasons, giving up their time. My only regret from being, the head of the Tilehurst End setting it up is, I just wish we lived in a kind of digital economy where you could reward people properly, and for people to be kind of fairly compensated for the effort and the hours they do, because it is effort. And I'm sure you two are both in that same position. There are days when you just don't want to do it. You've
Yeah.
stuff going on. You might have had a bad day at work. You've got stuff going on with family,
Why are
and
you
you're
letting
like,
the listeners know that I was 45 minutes late?
exactly. And it's having that commitment to be able to go, no, I am going to submit it. I am going to get behind the microphone and record it. So look, a massive hats off to everybody, whether you've written one article, whether you've written hundreds, whether you popped on one podcast or hosted a couple of hundred. And my big plea to everybody out there, if you're listening to this or you read the website and you've had that little bit of I might like to get involved one day,
Yeah.
just drop an email to the tilehurstend@gmail.com. You don't have to have masses of experience. You don't have to be the most amazing writer in the world to do it. It's taking that time, and that's why there are people like Sim that will tidy stuff up for you. So
Why are you looking at me when you say that? Honestly,
just-
I'm fed up of this
Because
slander.
I'm the editor of the video stuff. Tim's the editor of the
Yeah.
website. So you need to put an editor thing next to your name. Otherwise,
But,
I know.
but get involved,
He-
because if that pipeline dries up, then the Tilehurst End will eventually go away. And
Yeah.
look, I'm not casting shade on anybody, but there have been lots of other people that have popped up over the last 15 years, have tried to run a website or a podcast or both, and have seen certain aspects of it go away. They through fault or no fault of their own, they can't carry that on. So it's only by the will and the dedication of everybody that pops in articles and, as I said, gives up their time. So
It's a really, really
just a
good
massive
point
thank you.
about the effort level, and there were times, I mean, last week particularly for me, I was like, I just watched the Stevenage game. I had stuff going on outside of the pod as well, like really shocking week overall, and I just was like, I can't be bothered with this. And I kind of listened back to some of it to see how kind of flat I was sounding. Didn't even plug my mic in last week. I had it here, it wasn't even plugged in, so it was just like really quiet. But you're right, that consistency, and that's what Sim is always on about. And particularly when we have the summer break, we're always keen to just keep the pod going, even if we're just talking about nostalgia stuff, just to keep it ticking over. And what you said about Sim is absolutely spot on. Ross does an incredible amount of stuff behind the scenes as well, and all those people that contribute with the with the articles. That's the thing I'm most proud of. Joining whatever this is, this unprofessional joke of a fan site in 2019, best thing I've ever done. Genuinely one of the best things I've ever done, and always really proud to leave business cards in the toilet of Reading pubs whenever I go in there and stuff, and kind of advertise it as much as I can. But it's on the whole, it's really, really enjoyable, and we've had some great experiences. Obviously getting to talk to Ross every week, and leaning on you, Wim, in terms of what you think, and having that group of people. But you're right, like Peter Matthews, I haven't even mentioned him in this podcast. Steve, who does the pre-match stuff, the previews. There's all these people. Harry Chafer, like Harry, a drop of a hat. We can't do something, Harry does it. Alex does loads of stuff. All these people that contribute. It's just it's very humbling to be part of that. It really is humbling to be part of that.
Contribute a lot too. I agree on that. Yeah. Just like it's nice to have a consistent group. The top comment on the YouTube video from last week is just keep it up, YouTube. Born near Elm Park in the 50s, and I was a regular before moving off to uni. I think this is a good way to sum it up. It's nice to keep up with my childhood team, a team you cannot stop supporting, which feels very Reading. Very Reading for sure. I don't want to drag us off this Tilehurst Glaze sesh because I do love the Tilehurst End, obviously. However, I have a very special quiz for you, which I'd like to record now. So things may end up a little bit out of order here in the actual podcast. In the end, we'll see how long this takes. But shall we get into that quiz?
Please do.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Are you hosting
All
the
right,
next
so
bit then?
lads,
So I'll just shut
yeah,
up
I'm
and
gonna
let
host
you.
this bit.
Fine.
Shut up, Ben. Jeez, my
Stop
word.
talking, bro.
This guy won't even edit. Real quick, there's a video from me on the Shorts feed again on the YouTube channel, so please do go have a watch. I'm wandering around the woods. Yesterday, when I did that video, my dog ran away, and it took me 5 minutes to find him again afterwards. So please enjoy the effort. All right, it is time for what's the quiz called now? Quiz Wang? What did you call it?
Do we call it? What should we call it, Wem? I said Reading Wang.
I just liked Quiz Wang.
Quiz Wang.
Quiz Wang.
All right,
Well,
Quiz Wang.
yeah.
Well, after depending on how much time we have after this, I'm going to ask you some more questions about this kind of topic because as well as us celebrating our 15th, obviously the 106 season is celebrating its 20th anniversary. So what I have gone ahead and done for this week's quiz is Wim and Ben are going to play against each other. Now, I have pulled up the starting lineup from a game that I reckon both of you guys were probably at. Leicester 1, Reading 1. Oh, maybe not, it was away. But this is the game on Saturday, March the 25th, 2006, that Reading sealed promotion to the top flight for the first time in their history, to paraphrase the BBC. I love that you can still see the old BBC web pages in their old glory too, like in the Web 1.0 style. But in any case, what I'm going to be doing here is asking you guys one at a time to name the starting lineup from that game. If we have a tie, which I don't think we will because there are 11 players. No, we won't have a tie, so it's not even important. So I'm not going to make you guys do this in order. You can pick any player you like at any point during the game. You can say the striker, and then it will be Ben's turn, Wim. And then Ben could say, a midfielder. And then if you wanted to, you don't then need to name like the same player. You could name like a goalkeeper or whatever.
Right. So whoever goes first is going to win then, isn't they?
No, because it's one at a time. So we'll see how many you guys get right. And if you get one wrong, we'll hand it over to the next person. We'll see who ends up with the most points at the end of the game. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah.
It does. Right. I think Ben's going to win this one. I was not at this game.
Neither was I. Don't worry, Wim.
I was not. I was actually. I was at university in Portsmouth, handling a very important essay.
So yeah.
I was 11. Anyway.
What's your excuse why you weren't there then? Me and Ben were doing important stuff.
I was probably
we're doing our SATs revision.
You know what the real problem with the real thing that makes you a Tilehurst End person, Wim, is that I was a theatre kid, and that was probably what I was doing at that time.
Before we do this, can I give you a fact?
Go for it.
Leicester's manager in this game was Rob Kelly.
Yep.
He's now on our bench.
Oh, yeah.
Synergy.
Synergy. You know what's quite funny is that since this result, in the 20 years, Leicester have obviously had quite an exciting 20 years, but I would say they're almost exactly in the same position they were 20 years ago now, in that they are struggling at the bottom of the championship.
I think they get relegated on the side as well.
Yeah, they're looking like.
I'd also say I'd probably rather have had their last 20 years than ours.
Exactly.
I completely agree. I was actually thinking about that the other day. Like, I don't think, even with them being where they are now, I don't think there's a team in football that I would want to have had their history more than Leicester over the last. But anyway, I digress. Okay, let's start with you, Wim, because you are our guest today. You've got the full lineup, so you can say anybody you like. I'm not going to tell you what the formation was this day. Why don't you go ahead and name a player?
All right, let's start in goal with Marcus Hanneman.
You are spot on. Marcus Hanneman did indeed start this game. Wonderful. Ben, it's up to you.
Convey.
Bobby Convey did start in this game. That is correct. Yes. Well done. All right, back on over to you, Wim. Another player who started in this game.
Ivar Ingemarson.
That is correct. Ivar Ingemarson did play in this game, yes. Ben.
All right, I'll make it easy. I'll go Sonko.
Ibrahima Sonko did play in this game. He did start this game. That is correct. All right, next one.
James Harper.
James Harper did start this game. There we go. Ben.
So this is a massive gamble.
Okay.
This could completely backfire. I'm going to say John Oster.
John Oster did start this game. Yeah, yeah.
He was
I
a
thought
question
that
mark
would
I
be
had.
one of the ones that would catch you out. So this is good to. I keep asking old heads. This is my problem. I keep designing the quiz for someone like myself, and I forget that you guys know a lot more about this club than I do. Wim, it's your turn again.
Steve Sidwell.
Stephen Sidwell did not
No.
start this game.
Got him.
Stephen Sidwell did not start this game. Ben, it's over to you now.
Uncle Bryn, because he replaced, or rather he was in place. One of them was in place of Steve Sidwell.
Rob Brydon.
Uncle Bryn.
Brynjar Gunnarsson, is that your final answer?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Brynjar Gunnarsson did start this game. That is spot on. Brynjar Gunnarsson did start this game. All right, so Ben has streaked into the lead. To be fair to you, Wim, he's got weeks of practice here against you, so that's
It's okay. It's okay. I will go Nicholas Shorey.
Nicholas
Shorey did start this game. Wonderful. Well done. Well done. Nicholas Shorey did start this game. Ben, you have 3 more in there. Yeah.
Mertz.
What are they? Mertz. Graham Murty did start this game. That is exactly correct. Yes. Wonderful. Wim, back to you. You're going to hopefully need to get 2 out of 3 here. Otherwise, Ben's going to take you.
I remember. I
2
think
Go ahead.
Leroy Lita was injured, so I'm going to say Dave Kitson.
Dave Kitson did start this game. That is exactly correct. So, Ben, for the win, can you name the last person in this starting lineup?
Yeah, the goal scorer is Kevin Doyle.
All right, it is Kevin Doyle. So I'm going to give Wim, in the way that if you guys have ever played beer pong, there's always
Quizwang.
right of reply is always a thing in beer pong. Okay, so I've prepared a right of reply here for Wim to seize the win out from underneath Ben's feet. So Wim, there were 3 substitutions made in this game by Reading. Can you
That's a
name...
horrible question, that is.
Horrible question. Can you name the 3 substitute players that came onto the field?
I'm sweating already.
Stephen Hunt always came on.
For Convey,
Okay,
yeah.
Stephen
Hunt has to be one of them.
Stephen Hunt is correct. That's 1. You got 2 more to go.
Shane Long.
Shane Long is correct. Shane Long is correct. He also came onto the field. If you can get the last sub, you can steal this out from underneath Ben.
I know who
I don't
it
remember,
is.
like Chris Macon was the other one that always used to be knocking around this squad, and then I don't remember why Sidwell wasn't playing. So it's one of those two, isn't it?
Let me just put it this way, Wim. There is, because this is old style BBC, there is like a subs not used section as well as the subs that were used section. So I can see everybody who was on the bench as well as who
I'll tell you who it wasn't.
Yeah, go ahead.
Graham Stack.
I was going to say Graham Stack would have been on the bench.
Easiest
He
job
was also
that
on the
season.
bench, yes.
Easiest job that
So-
season.
I'll gamble and say Macon because he used to plod on for one of Mercy or Shorey, but Ben's rubbing his hands for YouTube viewers, so I have a feeling that it was the other one that I was going to go for.
It was Stephen Sidwell who came on.
That's fair. Ben won it in regular time. I would have felt dirty.
You took
winning
it to
it in that way.
penalties, but you couldn't finish the job. That's the
Ben avenges Wales's.
I was going to say, at least I won something on penalties this week.
I was going to say.
I thought it could be kind of fun for the last little bit of the pod here. I know we haven't really done a mailbag today. And Ben, was there mailbag stuff that I'm just ignoring?
Yeah, there's definitely mailbag stuff, but it's just, when has that ever stopped us?
When has that ever stopped it? Well, we'll keep some of that mailbag stuff for next week. I kind of wanted to spend the last 10 minutes here just talking about the 106 season. I know Reading fans have done that a million times over. I get it, but obviously, like, it's the 20-year anniversary. I think it's special. I think it's cool that the club is acknowledging that and doing some fun stuff around it this week. I've enjoyed a lot of the content. I've very much enjoyed having a picture of the Amazons on like a 106 thing, even though they were probably also 11 back in the 106 season. But I mean, were you guys both season ticket holders that year?
Yeah.
Yeah. When did it feel to you guys then, I suppose, that it could be a season like the one that it turned into?
We went to Wolves on Boxing Day,
Hmm.
and it I can't remember I think we must have won, but I remember
Yeah,
looking at
we
that
won
game
2-0
thinking,
away.
I think we're going to be all right. I think we're going to go up. Around that time, and we just kept getting points, and it's very, very difficult to explain because I don't think you get a feeling in modern football now, and that sounds really, really old, doesn't it? But I felt we went into every single game, and I knew we were going to win. I just knew we were going to win. Um,
Yeah.
and it was just the most bizarre feeling ever because on rare occasions you go a goal behind, you just knew you were going to win. And what was quite incredible about that whole team, and I'm really pleased to see the content coming out this week with some of the backroom stuff, is that in an
Yeah.
era, and Wim will know more about this than I will because I wasn't really clued up on media at that time, but content from football clubs was just kind of developing. It wasn't really like a massive thing, but you felt like you knew every single member of that backroom staff and within the squad, and players that didn't play. We joked about Graham Stack, but he was an integral part of that team in terms of the morale and the way in which the whole squad and the team was presented. And you will never ever get a manager like Steve Coppell ever again. He was, everything he said was on point. Everything he did was right. If he couldn't be right as a manager, he was just unreal. And the whole season, obviously it started horrifically with losing to Plymouth. I mean, it had to be Plymouth, didn't it? And I remember getting the train back to Bracknell and thinking, this is going to be another season of also rans. And then we just went on this rampage, and it was just incredible. And I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it now, really. But you just go into games, and you just knew you were going to win,
Yeah.
basically.
Wim, do you have a VHS or DVD of this season somewhere that can be pulled out?
I think I do. I think the whole thing's on YouTube now as well. And I've got the thing that I love the most is I picked up that lovely commemorative book that
Mm.
I think you see in the background when the club do their Royals TV stuff. That I love just having a look through. And they did one for the first season of the Prem as well. I wasn't a season ticket holder that season. I went to university in the northwest of England, so I have this weird disconnect with that era of Reading Football Club because whilst it was the best, and I was obviously still delighted and following along, it was probably the furthest I've ever been from the football club in our greatest hour. I literally came back from uni and we got relegated from the Premier League. So
That was
just
your fault.
it was my fault, and I distinctly remember I turned up for the Cardiff game, and I want to say it was just either New Year's Day. It was something like this, and I just pitched up at the ground with my dad, and I got turned away. And I was like, "What do you mean the tickets have sold out? Like I was here like 3 years ago watching us play Chesterfield with about 7,000 people. What do you mean I can't come in?" And we won
Yeah.
like 5-1. I was just like, everybody's jumped on this bandwagon, and I've missed out. But I think Ben talks about like the Boxing Day feeling. I think what you've got to remember as well is that the season before we went off like a train as well. Like up until like Boxing
Yeah.
Day, we were like, I think we were like in the top two and like going really well. And I think we like smashed Watford or something. And I just thought, okay, we're going to be all right. And then we didn't win a game for like 3 months. It was just and we signed like Les Ferdinand and Martin Keown,
Yeah,
and
odd
it
time.
and it just all like completely fell apart. So
That's horrible, wasn't
even
it?
as good as it was that following season, I still have that feeling in the back of my mind, like, okay, when's this going to turn? And perhaps it was because I
Yeah.
wasn't watching every game. I didn't have that confidence that Ben had, where I was just like, oh, we're going to win this game. I was just still watching the results come in. So I couldn't even listen to like Radio Berkshire from where I was. I was just relying on like Soccer Saturday and like going on my WAP enabled three
Wow,
mobile
yeah.
phone or
Oh,
whatever it was to
unreal.
check a
I'm gonna mute
score.
us on
Did
past
you did
that
you have
before the Ledios.
did you have a
Ooh.
BlackBerry?
I did have a BlackBerry.
Did
Yes.
you? Oh,
Yeah,
future
yeah, I did.
businessman. Love that. Love that.
Indeed. Although I think this was my second year of uni, so I had like that 3 flip phone thing that loads of
Yeah,
people seem to
yeah,
have back
yeah.
then. Anyway, nostalgia merchant that I am. So look, it was just incredible. But for me, I'd have that bittersweet feeling about that season because I missed out. Like I didn't get to go to the parade. I didn't get to go to any of these massive moments. Loved it as a fan. I did manage to get to a few games that season. I went to a few of the games. I went to the Burnley game where we won 3-0 and I think Leroy broke his ankle or his leg.
A bad injury.
And I saw a few of the home games at the start of the season before I went off. Like I saw Doyle scoring his first goal against Burnley. But yeah, so missed out on all the fun. And then the Premier League season, again, I saw a few of the away games in the Northwest, but I didn't see a lot of the home stuff. So yeah, I always have that. My greatest 2 Reading memories are the run to the 95 playoff final, because it was my first season, and the 2011-2012 season, because I was there for pretty much every home and away game in that run-in. But look, the achievement, and I think the fact it's been 20 years is just mind-blowing. I cannot believe, because when I think of 20 years ago, I do think of the 95 playoff final. I don't think
you're right.
5-6 season.
As someone who's like over here and like obviously not getting to talk to Reading fans very often, this era, this 2-season run really with the 106 season and then the first Premier League season, that is the image of Reading that has stuck in the minds of a lot of people who are very interested in football but only peripherally interested in lower league English football or something like that. And this is the core memory that they have of our club, and so I think that's almost quite nice in a way, that is the memory that people have of us. One of my most prized possessions is a kind of commemorative little like coin/medal thing that was all the rage around the time of the remember like the Queen's.
I didn't get one of those. I've gutted. I got the one from the Premier League, but I didn't get the one from the 106 season.
Wim's pulling it out now for audio listeners, but it is my one's very special to me because a guy who is from the mountains of Algeria who came to our football group and began playing football with us over here in Portland. One of my best friends in the world over now. He's a great guy, but like he was aware of the 106 season, and when he wanted to go and get me like a Reading gift, that was what he went and found. He was like, I know this means a lot to you. I'm going to go find that. And it's like, it's just cool that like from around the world, people, have that memory of that one thing. Wim's now totally disappeared to go and find the.
I was going to say, I can go
buried
get
at the bottom of the
DVD as
drawer,
well.
so I'm not going to take up everyone's time. I know where it is.
I'll find mine as well soon. It's sitting in. I know exactly where it is, sitting on my sort of trophy.
A lovely little memento. But look, I'm really glad the club is celebrating it properly. It's been nice to see that they're dropping.
Yeah.
I mean, I think most of the squad are there at the weekend, and so the Amazons are turning up, and it's just the only thing that always, again, my own personal stuff aside, is, and I don't know if you two ever sit there and look now at clubs like Brighton and Bournemouth, and you sit there and go, that should have been us. Like we had such an opportunity. Like someone
Fulham as well. Fulham were in that ballpark. Fulham were there or thereabouts with us.
Like someone posted about the plans we had to expand the Bluesky.
It was a North Stand, honestly, and they were going to build on top of it. And I'm thinking, do that now. No one's there. I looked behind me on Saturday for the first time in months. It's literally blue seats behind me. It's absolutely bonkers. But
I just hope that, because there's a whole generation of fans now that, you have to be at least probably 26, 27 now to really sort of, and probably close to 30 to have properly understand it. So I'm hoping that this generation of Reading fans that have kind of, and 5-6 seasons later we got to the Premier League again, but I would love for this next generation of Reading fans to be able to go on that journey again.
Yeah,
I was different to you there because I was at university in Portsmouth, so I was able to get to. I think I only missed one home game that season across all competitions. So I spent my student loan basically doing that, Portsmouth to Reading, the Basingstoke train and Guildford and all that. But my girlfriend at the time was from Southampton. She was from Eastleigh. So we went to the away game, and she went with her dad and I went with my dad. And it was weird. Like, it was really weird because, Portsmouth went in, obviously, in with us at that time. They were kind of doing quite well in the Premier League. So I went
Yeah.
to watch them a few times. But yeah, like away games I couldn't get to. But I seem to remember I watched a lot of games on Sky. Like as we were winning more games, we became more popular and put on Sky. And there was the Luton, do you remember the Luton away game that we lost like 3-2 or something? Remember
Yeah,
watching
did
that in a
Dean
pub.
Morgan
And
score against us?
yeah, he did. Yeah. So I watched a lot of the away games on TV. But it was just an incredible season. We had a little blip. I think we drew like 3 games, including the Leicester one, because it was like, is it going to be this week we go up or get promoted or whatever? And there was a bit of a stutter. There was like two or 3 games before the Leicester game. But after that, I mean, we just absolutely tanked some of these teams. We really did. So
Yeah.
and I feel really privileged that I remember it and I was part of it. And like you said, Wim, I got the book, I got the DVD, didn't get the coin. Really annoying. Really annoyed about that actually. But it was great. It was absolutely unreal, and I'm not gonna be able to go to the Lincoln game unfortunately. But some of the stuff they're doing there, just it deserves it. You know, there are some fantastic people. You know, Ron Grant, John Fan. You know, physios who I think he still works in Reading. I think he's got a little kind of physio shop or clinic or whatever. And yeah, just Wally Downs, like Kevin Dillon, all these people, you know, obviously Sir John himself. Like it put Reading on the map. I think it really did. That season, people sat up, and
That's
obviously being in the Premier League is great, but that season really put us on the map. I think.
yeah. The club did a great little interview with Sir John Medeski with friend of the pod, Ryan, asking the questions, and you know, he said like that. Like the city status stuff is whatever, but what really put Reading on the map was being in the Premier League and having a football club that got to the Premier League, and just the whole achievement of that season. And as I said, the further we get away from it, the bigger it is. It's almost like the Simod Cup as well. Like the Simod Cup just gets bigger and bigger for like my dad. It was like it's the one time we went to old Wembley and saw Reading win. They beat a top division side in a final. And, you know, that Simod Cup is now, we're coming up for what, 30 years?
It's wow.
40 years.
Yeah, it's 40
years.
Yeah, because it was before my time watching.
It sounds like Wim, basically, when you think back at something, just add 10 years. And,
It's ridiculous. 1988. Yeah.
It actually happened.
So,
all right.
I love that. I loved that chat. I could talk about 106 all day. I really could. I really could. Loved it.
And you guys are both doing a great job of it too, but I'm squatting for audio listeners because I have to now go coach the next generation of
the next Bobby Convey.
The next Bobby Convey. Yeah, exactly. I got to be honest with you, though, Wim, actually, most of the coaching staff that I work with are English as well, so we're just creating the next Graham Stack is what we're actually doing.
Listen, let's wrap it up then. Episode 457. I hope you've really enjoyed it. Celebrate we won, obviously, 700 pods, 15 years. We've got birthday beers in the Siren web shop as well, so use Tilehurst 10 at the checkout for some money off. They're celebrating their 13th birthday this month as well, so congratulations to them. Yeah, hope you've enjoyed it. Big weekend of Easter football. Huddersfield away on Friday, at home to Lincoln, back at the Madstad on Easter Monday. We'll be back with a pod next week, next time on the Tilehurst End podcast. Huge thanks to Wim for coming on. I hope you've enjoyed it, the little trip down nostalgia, and obviously
always.
Thank you to Ross for absolutely nothing as usual. We will see you next week. And yeah, come on you Oz.
Go on you Oz.